LeBron James is expected to be out indefinitely, at least a couple of weeks before repeat evaluation after this foot injury sustained on the weekend. And in this video, we're going to do some detective work about what I think actually did happen now that we've had more information. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and if it's your first time here and you enjoy learning about anatomy and sports medicine injuries, then please consider subscribing to support my channel and stay up to date with all future videos. My initial concern with this injury here to LeBron was some sort of a midfoot ligament sprain or a midfoot injury, kind of in the category of something like a Liz Franck. But we've gotten some new information in reporting that I think points to a different injury, specifically the plantar fascia, which is something that was speculated by a lot of other folks. And based on what we've now heard, I think makes a lot more sense than the midfoot ligament. Part of the reason I wasn't really thinking about plantar fascia right away, even though we heard a pop, was it seemed like it was really this step where LeBron at least might have experienced some of the pain, and there really wasn't a severe amount of kind of push off, kind of stress on the plantar fascia on this step. Now, again, kind of similar to what happened with LaMelo Ball. Sometimes we have to think about the steps before, and potentially here on this one, when LeBron is pushing off, there's definitely more of that kind of plantar flexed pushing off of the forefoot, stress on the plantar fascia position. So maybe it was the step before. But nonetheless, the recent reporting, I think, points more to this plantar fascia, which is ultimately a better scenario than the midfoot injury. Just recall briefly where the plantar fascia is and what it does. Basically, it's on the undersurface of our foot, and it's this thick band of connective tissue that runs from the base of the heel bone, called the calcaneus, out to the toes and sort of blends in with the rest of these muscles and tendons. Now, there's actually 3 different cords of the plantar fascia. There's a medial, a central, and a lateral cord, but they all kind of come together at the origin. And whenever people have plantar fasciitis, they get thickening of specifically this origin of the plantar fascia. You get micro tears, kind of repetitive trauma to the plantar fascia, and it gradually swells up and becomes painful over time. People can also suffer acute ruptures or tears of the plantar fascia, oftentimes when there's been some sort of kind of underlying injury or degeneration present. The biggest telltale sign for me is this reporting from Shams saying that he initially hurt this back in January, but after evaluation continued to play and decided to play through the discomfort rather than sitting out for an extended period of time. If he had suffered a midfoot ligament sprain back at the beginning of the year, continuing to play on it wouldn't have even really been an option. I can't imagine any scenario where medical staff would allow a player to play through a ligament injury, specifically one involving the midfoot, where if it was made worse, you could seriously harm the integrity and long-term remaining part of his career if he were to suffer more devastating surgical midfoot type of sprain. But plantar fasciitis, or a partial plantar fascia tear, while it can be really painful and debilitating, is not something that's like harmful to the rest of a player's well-being and just longevity with their foot. In fact, when somebody does completely rupture their plantar fascia, you don't even go back in and surgically repair it. You basically immobilize somebody in a boot, as we've seen being done with LeBron, usually for a period of about 2 weeks, and then you gradually work them out of the boot and back to their activity as tolerated. So again, I can't imagine the Lakers would have allowed LeBron to play through a midfoot sprain back at the beginning of the year without at least a prolonged period of rest. So that to me lowers this possibility of a midfoot Liz Franck type sprain much lower on the differential because of this key piece of the information. The other information was provided by Mark Medina on the Odd Couple podcast, where he said basically James has no structural issues and the injury isn't believed to be season ending. There's a chance that not only that he's coming back, but that he can importantly play through the pain once the initial pain calms down. Again, this points more towards the plantar fascia. The plantar fascia is not something I think of as being structurally integral to the foot. Yes, it plays a role in supporting the arch, and you obviously want to have a nice intact plantar fascia, but it's not the same structural support as something like a midfoot ligament or the Liz Franck ligament. Again, this is something that you can tolerate some discomfort and some pain. But if it did acutely rupture, which would explain the pop that LeBron heard or felt, then you basically immobilize it for a couple of weeks in a boot. You then work out of the boot and gradually progress back to your activities as tolerated. But you can tolerate a little bit more pain because, again, it's not something that is going to cause like the entire foot to collapse, similar to a sprain of one of the ligaments supporting the bones and the true structural integrity of the midfoot. The concern here, though, is I expect this will be something that continues to bother him and cause pain. We've seen some NBA players try and play through plantar fasciitis, play through plantar fascia ruptures. And again, while it's not necessarily one of those things that you have to do surgery on or completely shut down because of fear of instability in the foot, it can be very nagging and persistently painful. And so yes, while I expect LeBron will try and return back, we're probably gonna see 2 weeks of time where he'll be in that boot. After that, we'll see him gradually get out of the boot, progress to walking, progress to running, progress to basketball over the course of probably the next 1 to 2 weeks. So I think ultimately we're probably looking at more like 3 to 4 weeks before we see him back at kind of peak basketball level if this was in fact a plantar fascia significant tear or plantar fascia rupture. But again, that might be too late for him to really come back and it made a significant difference. Thankfully, if this is the plantar fascia more so than a midfoot sprain, I would have even less concern about health going forward the rest of his career. So overall, I think all the pieces are lining up here for, at least in my mind, this to point more towards the plantar fascia being partially torn or potentially ruptured. But that's a better thing, I think, than trying to deal with a midfoot ligament sprain and then come back for the postseason run or potentially the playoffs. That's it for the video, everybody. Let me know as always any questions or comments down below. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.